Hey, Mr. Steve Kozak, thank you so much for coming on with us on OCD. We really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you so much. Thank you and Jason. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, let's get into it. You are the director, along with Jeremy Kuhn of A Disturbance in the Force. You've also worked on, which great documentary, by the way. You've also worked on shows like Whose Line Is It Anyway, which I really enjoy, and eventually making your way into late night television, Jimmy Kimmel Live. But we can go on and on, Steve. The list is long.
Well, 61 years. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, but you have a book out now that's called A Disturbance in the Force. How and why the Star Wars holiday special happened. Tell us about the book and what made you want to write about the special.
well, we started this production a couple months before COVID. And so, only 4 or 5 months before COVID. And when COVID, there were surprisingly a lot of people that actually did want to interview us when we were doing the documentary during COVID. We were really shocked at how many people were saying yes, and older people. There was probably maybe one or two, maybe three people that said no, they couldn't do it because of COVID. Most people were like really anxious to get out of the house, just to do something
Mm.
different. We were masking up. We were doing everything legit. But it just became, the business side of the industry was just, they were hit, and our agency that we were working with at the time, um, not our agency, but another one of our producers' agents, sees was losing losing people uh, because of COVID. So there wasn't that push to really keep pushing on the documentary. We kind of just started walking in slow motion a little bit. And during those months, I just started writing just because I just wanted to get stuff down. Um, it wasn't really an intention to write a book. I was just kind of trying to not waste time. I just a lot of these people in this program um, were in their were old. They were old, and time was not on their side. So I was just trying to get something down, just to kind of keep moving in a way. And all of a sudden, I realized, boy, there is really a lot to this. It's funny because my partner when we had started, he just didn't. He would tell me every now and then, I don't see this as a hour and a half. I don't know. And then quickly he realized, like, no, there's a lot to this story, and there's a lot of the Star Wars stuff into it. Just the Star Wars One, A New Hope stuff, adventures through that time period, and the TV variety era. That definitely made it more of a. They definitely filled it up to an hour and a half. So yeah, I was just trying to get stuff down and just moving on, moving
Y-
along.
Yeah. Can you tell us about the role that Charley Lippincott played in the marketing of Star Wars?
Well, Charlie was, I have to say that when my editor read the book, it was one of the greatest days of my life. It was the same day we premiered. It was the day after we premiered at South by Southwest with the documentary, and uh, my agent had called me and said how much he loved the first. He finally had just finished the book and saw the first draft, and he said to me, "So we had these amazing reviews of the doc, but the best thing I ever heard was when my agent said, 'You've written a Valentine to Charley Lippincott.'" And that made me so happy. I mean, the fulfillment I had because of that, because the more I learned about this very, very, very persnickety person, he was no easy guy to get along with. He was definitely persnickety. But as the time went on, I started seeing why he was persnickety. I mean, he had left the last Hitchcock film, Family Plot, as a publicist to join Lucas on this mad adventure, and all of a sudden he does all these amazing things. He creates a Marvel comic book series. He writes and commissions a book to be written, and then he starts touring with all of the props and designs that Joe Johnston and the oh, help me out, the artist. Oh, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name.
Was it McCordy?
Yeah, their artwork. He was taking to conventions, science fiction conventions, comic book conventions, and pitching and explaining to people about the show, because science fiction films did not do well in those days, and it didn't have any stars in it. So he had to really find a way to put people in the seats the first week or two. And I think that was, at that point, was like, that's past the publicist's job. Then if you have a hit on your hands, then it just works on its own, which it did. So yeah, that's Charley Lippincott's. I mean, he put people in the seats. People say it was word of mouth, and I remember at the time it coming out, and everyone was talking about it, dragging me to go see it. I didn't want to go see a science fiction film. I remember when I was 13 or whatever, and it was the word of mouth that really kept it going. But you can't have word of mouth if you don't have that first group of people that are actually sitting in the seats that first week, or it would have just been returned to the theater, to the studio.
Right.
That's what he's responsible for, and he really never got appreciated for it. And there is nothing more frustrating, in life, as you guys can imagine as well, and not getting appreciated for work that you've done. Especially that one of the greatest films of all time.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I have not read the book yet, but Jason did mention that your book does an excellent job at outlining the marketing of Star Wars. And so I was curious, do you collect any of the toys or figurines? Are you a collector at all?
Man, I never had any interest in collecting toys. But
What do you got?
Let's see.
I do collect record albums.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
They're signed by Henry Winkler.
Yeah.
Here's another. Let's see. It's Donny Osmond's. There we go.
Oh, nice.
There we go. So I have my own weirdness of things that I collect. I don't collect toys.
I think we all have a weirdness of items we collect.
Yeah, we all do. We all do.
Here we go. Here's my Bob Hope golfer.
Nice.
That's nice.
There we go. It used to actually swing, and you could actually hit a ball and it went around. So yeah, here I am talking about, not me. I don't have toys.
I'm not that guy.
Well, going back to Charlie for a second, how he did that really the first presentation at San Diego Comic-Con. Do you think he was kind of part of the success, responsible for the success of that convention, how it kind of grew?
I never thought of that, because it did take a while still for Comic-Con to really catch on.
Yeah.
I will say that what probably pushed Comic-Con farther was the second rebirth of Star Wars with, as soon as I don't know what it was. What was it? I'm trying to think how old I was. I took like the mid 90s when the special editions came out.
Yeah.
I think that's what, and all of a sudden Star Wars was not just an insane movie.
Yeah.
It was like a religion.
Yeah.
And I think that's what pushed, that was probably very responsible, which indeed was initially pushed by Lippincott. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think he deserves credit. He just was, and if you, there is an amazing interview I did with a guy named Charley. Oh, starts Charles. Gosh, I'm losing his name. But he was Lucas, a couple of months after A New Hope came out, he hired a CEO to run Lucasfilm, Charles Weber. And I had heard that he was very kind of dismissive of Lippincott. He marginalized him. He took away a lot of his responsibilities to where he literally went from doing everything to doing nothing. And I interviewed him, and it was heartbreaking. He was really rude and dismissive of Lippincott, saying things like, he just wasn't, we'd kind of passed over him by then. It's like, passed over him. Like, he said he became meaningless after. I'm like, meaningless? I mean, when I think about what Star Wars was like just in the first year, we're talking the first full year hadn't even passed before they had hired him. Maybe 6 months into it is when they hired this guy Weber. And then he's like saying, oh yeah, we kind of went past it. We were dealing with other stuff. Like 6 months into the run, it was, I can't imagine that, you wouldn't do anything to be able to walk around and say at that time, I'm responsible for the success of this. They were, oh, well, we were on to other films. And well, yeah, you were on to other films because of the success of Star Wars. No other reason, But I am proud of. I was very hesitant about him talking to me on the record. I mean, it was amazing what he said to me. Then I got one or two other people to respond to those comments, and they put him in his place. Like, that's totally out of control that he would say that, But yeah, this is a very sad story about someone's life who, again, there is nothing more frustrating than people rewriting history. And the one thing that you're most responsible for and most dedicated to, you're just he was just a PR guy. It's like, he was more than just a PR guy.
It reminds me of the Ramones. They finally started to get credit after they were done, after most of them were dead, and now yeah. Charlie's finally getting some credit now too.
Well, Lucas, I guess, it is after he died, made some comment that he's, was responsible. It's like, it's so frustrating. I mean, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, Neil Young said that to David Crosby after he died, after going a couple of years and not talking to him because of a big issue they had. And it's like, it's so sad to like leave people at the end of their life, with that issue and not dealing with that and cleaning that up, getting past something like that.
Yeah.
So he's I have to tell you, when I first reached out to him, I really didn't like him. I really didn't like him. He was so persnickety. He was like saying, please he actually was, I was reaching out to him like on a telephone and maybe an email, and he was responding to me not on Facebook Messenger or through mail. He was responding to me through posts on Facebook.
Oh no.
And that was just, the way he was. But I got it. I got it. He was ripped off big time.
Yeah. I feel like that happens quite a bit, which is sad. Let me ask you, besides the hilarious and a bit uncomfortable Wookie porn scene, what do you think are some of the most comical elements of the special?
You mean stuff that's bizarre, that you think is crazy?
Yes.
Well, I think that Luke's makeup is really bizarre. Mark Hamill is wearing
Yeah.
a lot of makeup, and it's very strange. And someone in the book, I asked a couple of people for some explanations. There was about 4 or 5 scenarios I put up. My favorite one though that made sense was that these were producers that came from theater. Um, Mitzi and Ken Welch, as well as a guy named oh gosh, I'm having a complete. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. One of the producers who quit early, but these were all guys who had like produced like the Linda Carter special and a lot of what's the word um, what's the word for Mariah Carey and Jennifer Lopez? What's the term for these women?
Divas.
Divas. They were like these, yeah. I mean, and they were like these Broadway divas that they had produced stuff for. Barbara Streisand, all these. They came from over the top theater. Hi, here I am. So it made sense that that's the biggest explanation I heard, was that best explanation I heard, that they were used to caking on the makeup, and so they did.
Sure.
So
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else that's, I mean, I did get asked once, is there anything good about it? And I really think that the cantina scene is amazing. I think it's fantastic.
Oh, okay.
It's B. Arthur is completely believable as a barkeep. I mean, she really sells it. I mean, she's committed, and she sings, and Under Those Hot Lights, that was like a 22-hour shoot, apparently. 22 hours in that room.
Wow.
I mean, with no breaks, nothing. So I'm trying to think of anything else that I just really think is just. Well, I think some of the. One of my favorites, actually, a couple of little things. How's that? Not the ones that
Yes.
stand out. Is
Let's hear
the
it.
way there's a great actor, Jack Rader, who he didn't make the cut of the documentary. I did get something of him in the book, though. He's a great old man. He plays one of the Imperial stormtroopers. He's like the Imperial guy that kind of comes to the house, who's in charge. And he does a lot of this, like, snapping of his fingers, let's move things, and he keeps doing it, pronto. And it's just so funny because in the original Star Wars, it had just been produced. It was done so well that all you needed just was a look from one of these guys' faces, just an eyebrow up, and it was just so terrifying. And that's one of the things that just didn't have that brilliant fear. Those brilliant character actors that played all they kept replacing each other, especially in the second movie. And he kept promoting each person as the other guy's dying. And if you remember this about Darth Vader. So yeah, the snapping of the fingers was just sadly comical. I mean, they used to be able to all those guys used to be able to just, with the force, just, choke someone, and, but anyway.
Yeah, I think a lot of people enjoyed the Boba Fett animation too. Not in a comic way, but just
yeah. I remember. I mean, I think it was okay, and I thought it's cool that the story's there.
Yeah.
It's definitely cool that it's a real, actual adventure that they're on, as opposed to whatever they're doing. Waiting around the house for someone to come home. I mean, what an unbelievable try to sell that story. So this family's at home and they're waiting for their dad to come home. That's it.
And you can't understand what they're saying. Yeah. Can you talk about the role that Warner Brothers vice chairman at the time, Frank Wells, played in the holiday special?
Did you say Vice? Oh, he Vice
Yeah,
Chair. Sorry,
vice
because
chairman. Yeah.
the film premiered on Vice 2-3
Oh
weeks.
yeah.
So, well, Frank Wells, that's a great find, and that's the one I'm probably most proud of. I had heard a story from Charles Lippincott, and he told this. Of course, he didn't tell it to me personally. He posted it on his page. Had some comments about Star Wars. It was a mistake. It was going down the wrong direction. Da 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 da. And then he said something like, there was a marketing guy that told us that they wanted to, from a marketing guy from Warner Brothers, they wanted to bring back THX 1138 for the on the heels of all the success of Lucas's Star Wars. And Lucas was like, and this is documented, he says this, and that Lucas was like, we were like, no, not now, don't do that now. And then he's like, no, we'll do it after the film's out of the theaters by September. This was in mid-July. And I mean, I was alive then. I mean, I saw the movie at that time. And to think about looking at that movie and looking at the charts and thinking that that had any loss of momentum, but not to completely blow right past it, is just mind-blowing and very hurtful. And there was a lot of actual past that Lucas had with this Frank Wells from Warner Brothers. Turned out that he had actually cut 4 minutes from THX 1138. Frank Wells did, not an editor, but Frank Wells oversaw the editing. So when I heard about this, he didn't tell me the name. He just said some marketing guy. And I spent so long, I used every contact I had in the entertainment business to go through Warner Brothers and people at the time period who worked in film to possibly know names of who this could be. And, you know, at one point we thought it was, what's his name? John, the guy who did Batman, John Peters. There was a lot of other names that are being thrown around. And then I guess about a month after just calling up names, we found out the widow found out that she found a journal that he had written. And I think the journal entry is in the book. I can't remember. And where it says clearly, he writes this thing down, Frank Wells. And I was like, Frank Wells? Like, I knew that name. Frank Wells had been the CEO of Disney. Frank Wells is the guy that he and Eisner are the ones who completely forgot about that whole layering of the marketing of the features, you know, that 7-year cycle, and just sent everything to DVD, sent everything to Blu-ray, and just got the immediate cash. And the shareholders went insane. The money that they made on that, money they made off Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Lion King. I mean, all in a row. Just those, not including all of the old features that they brought out and finally flooded the market with. You know, the money he made was unbelievable. The other relevance that he has too, he's also relevant because he's infamous for a couple of reasons. But I mean, this leading guy had been basically harassing Lucas for all these years, you know, kind of bugging him. When he thought, oh, you want to redistribute it, I'm going to go to the meeting, I'm going to listen to you. And this is what he says. He says, your movie is going to be, you know, it's not going to make it through the theaters by September. I mean, I still don't get why he would do that, other than to just kind of nudge him.
Hmm.
But he was also the guy who also is such an influential person, because it was his death. He was killed in a crash. It's his death that created DreamWorks. Because what happened is that when he died, all of a sudden Eisner needed a number 2 person, and Katzenberg was pushing him for that role. Eisner was kind of pissed off and annoyed that he was being so aggressive about it, and was really turned off. And finally, after 3-4 months, he hooked up with Geffen and Spielberg, and they launched DreamWorks. I mean, that's because of Wells. And the other thing is, he got into that whole other issue where he was hired at Disney, he also created the issue for when Mike Ovitz became an executive at Disney. He was given an amazing golden parachute, and that actually went to trial. And he was in this huge trial because he had like some crazy number, like some $100 million golden parachute after working there for a year. So he was in this major lawsuit. So I guess his death created so many issues that I just couldn't believe. This is the guy that actually is kind of the guy who pushed Lucas to say, well, if you're not going to, not only is it going to last through September, I'm going to make sure that that's our mission right now. And he tells him in the document, let's do whatever we can to get this to keep it in the theaters past September. And that's when you get all of their appearances on all the talk shows. And the next month, that's when they do Donnie and Marie and Richard Pryor. And there's a TV movie made. And that Christmas, they're doing the Bob Hope special. Anything to just push it. And they did. And it worked. And that success is what Lucas loved, because Lucas wound up seeing, oh my gosh, not only did it actually spiked. I mean, the actual box office actually rose during that month of all these television shows. And that's what gave him a better idea and a positive attitude about embracing television by having their own Christmas special. Hence, Frank Wells is the guy that instigated it. And I love the fact that we figured that out. I mean, it's, I just kept, you dream of something like that when you're working on a project like this, because everyone asks, how did it happen? And we had our ideas and everything, but nothing as clear cut as that. Like, it's all about pissing him off. It was literally all, in fact, there's a great line when Seth Green says the Star Wars holiday special might have been created out of spite, which is what we basically documented in the book and in the film.
Yeah, that was a great find. Yeah, you guys.
And I will say, Jason, I'm going to point you out here. Out of all the people and there were amazing reviews about the documentary and really good reviews about the book, no one ever singled out and noticed the Frank Wells story. And I thought the Frank Wells story was almost a, what are you doing, Joser?
No, I'm applauding Jason for it.
No, he was the only one that referred to the actual Frank Wells thing, like it should have been. I mean, it was a major part of the film. It shows the whole reason why it happened. And there wasn't one critic that, while everyone praised it, I just wish that more people would have glommed onto the whole point of it, which was this whole spite thing. But I appreciated Jason. In fact, I called him up and tracked him down just to thank him. I was so pleased. Someone finally got the whole point of the story. So, not to trash everyone else, but
No, of course not. Absolutely.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Definitely pretty cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, just to go back to the Wookiee scene for a second, who do you think is the most responsible for that scene?
Which scene do you mean?
The,
Oh,
the VR port.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, in the document, and there, that's the great thing about when you write a book. Jeremy edited my partner Jeremy edited the film, and it's harder to put in a lot of stuff that we're getting from third party sources. Like I found towards the end, after the documentary was pretty much already cut, I found some great interviews that they weren't even interviews, they were just news stories that I happened upon. And Mitzi Welsh explains that she had pushed the censor a little, pushed the censor, just she was trying to challenge the censor with that scene. And so that was at least proof, not proof like this is a scientific discovery, but proof that there was some intention in there, that they weren't completely just on drugs and accidentally let this through, because you just, when you watch it, you just can't possibly understand. And I mean, one of my big issues with that I definitely explored in the book was the what is her name? Gosh, the names on this. She was the Lucasfilm technical advisor. She was there at the special the whole time. And when I interviewed her, she was very critical of the special and just saying this was awful and this was awful and this is, why did they do this? How come they had the Wookiee and too much makeup, all the stuff that everyone dislikes. And I just kind of thought, and she was very harsh too. I mean, really, she said that the associate producer was just doing nothing but just smoking cigarettes. Meanwhile, I don't know what she did, because her only job was to basically sit there and let them know about anything that was awfully strange, like a masturbating Wookiee. That was the time to pick up the phone call and go, question.
Yeah.
Oh, George, how's everything going? Well, let me run this by you. I don't know if you've seen this recently, but that's just that just screams out like, what were you doing? And finally, I did ask her, well, why didn't you do something? Because it's so easy to just sit along somewhere and just let all this stuff go because you didn't have the guts to speak up. That's fine. But you can't have your cake and eat it too and then start adding to the criticism 40 years later. I mean, that's outrageous. And so, yeah, I mean, I asked her and she's like, well, I wasn't going to tell them what to do and everything. And then yet she made a big deal about the fact that when they were doing the animation parts, the animators were really fascinating. And unfortunately, with our time frame, we were kind of almost done with the film. So there's a lot more stuff about the animators that I was able to get later. That was really interesting. A lot of cool revelations. One of which was, this isn't a revelation. This is just the advisor saying everyone had to be. They had to create a kind of a generic look for each. For Han Solo, they had to create a design of what he would look like from straight on, from the side, and then of course they would animate after that. Well, when they first drew Leia, I guess she had a belt on or something, and or a buckle. I can't even. It was something so minor, and she said that Princess Leia shouldn't have a belt. That's wrong for her. And they said, it's going to cost you money if we have to change this. And she's like, that's okay. And she was bragging about that. And I'm like, wow. So you're all proud that you kiboshed the belt on her, but the masturbating Wookiee, I mean, that like 8:20 p.m. one of the people I interviewed, what was his name? Oh, there were so many people I interviewed for it, but I quote him in the book. It said that like the that scene comes in at like the first half hour of the first 2 hours, which started at 8. I mean, that's insane.
That is.
8:30 at night,
Mm.
that scene, which reads of nothing but cringiness. I can't even imagine if my kid was with me watching that, what I would,
Oh, yeah, and you can imagine so many families sitting together watching that.
Well, and Kyle Newman, who was a wonderful collaborator on the film, he was great because he wrote and directed Fanboys, and he was really, really great because he was much more of a Star Wars geek than Jeremy and I. Like much more. Like we love Star Wars, but he was like in another level. Knew all the little things, and he was like saying that he felt like that the whole. He's like, not only did it get written, it got written into the script. They acted it out. It gets edited. An editor sees it. Lucas sees it. I mean, there were so many places where someone could have raised their hand and go, "Skip, just one question. What is this? What is this? What are we doing? Could we have a quick talk about this before this goes out? Just a quick talk." Mind blowing.
That is
Mind blowing.
It is. Well, I love how detailed your book is, and the doc mentions the scene too. But I'm thinking about the cantina scene, how hot and uncomfortable those costumes were for the actors, how they were passing out. They had to have time limits, and that really hit home with me because two of my uncles, when I was young, they worked making costumes like that for the Jim Henson Company and on some different sci-fi films. So I've tried those costumes on, and I felt how hot it, how you can't breathe and you can't see. And have you ever tried one of those masks or costumes yourself, Steve?
No.
Okay.
I did talk to a good friend, Johnny Whitaker, who you don't know the name. He starred on Family Affair when he was a kid, but we're predating you young kids. But he also was the guy who was in Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. You remember that?
No, I don't.
So it was a Sid Marty Krofft show with these huge, crazy costumes.
Oh, okay.
In general gist, and he had the same issue where the people he was working with, he didn't have a costume, but everyone else did, and he described it in detail what it was like to be in there. And I love two different people, if I remember, and I just wound up just repeating it because they had said it so perfectly. Described like, it's in the middle of the summer. They're in a soundstage. They can't turn on the air conditioner because it's going to make noise. They're in a costume. They've got Klieg lights over their heads, and the rubber is melting onto the top of their head. And then they're piping in smoke, and then he can't breathe. I mean, it was just insane. And then you're thinking, and some of them have to dance now.
No.
It was amazing. Yeah, the interesting. There's a great story with that guy. Gosh, I am so embarrassed. I should have a cue sheet here of the cast. But he was the guy who played the walrus in the bar, and he's a great interview. And it turns out in 1978 he did like 3 other films. He did Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band as a dancer, the Star Wars Holiday Special, Stop the Music. I'm sorry, Can't Stop the Music, which is the Bruce Jenner Village People musical thing. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen it, but I can picture it.
Oh, that is a, and there's one more, but he was a dancer in 4 of like the worst musicals ever produced, and he was in all 4 of them. So he was quite a survivor. Quite a survivor.
Wow. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big Star Wars fan, but who doesn't know R2D2 and C3PO and Darth Vader? Who doesn't know all these characters? And it's I have to say, I really enjoyed the doc, and I was wondering if you've been getting this from non-Star Wars fans about your book, how have they reacted to it?
I mean, as far
Because
as
I think it's enjoyable, even if you're not a Star Wars fan. I think it's really enjoyable.
it's funny because the Star Wars connection is a gold mine to be able to have that IP on your, I mean, that automatically attracts, and marketers and film producers and book publishers are all knowing that, oh my gosh, it's a book about Star Wars. Wait till we get to, we get to be part of this. But then on the other hand, though, it does isolate. Like some people, when what I say to people, like when I want to tell them about the documentary, I always say, like, are you a Star Wars fan? And if they say yes, then I know they probably will know about the special. But if they say no, I go, oh, well, it's this special. And then they kind of give me that, like, I'm not into Star Wars. And that is exactly what you're talking about, Joe. Like, there is a negative that also comes with the positive. And I think that the best reviews we got were when people said, I'm not even really a Star Wars fan. But when I wrote the book, the intention of the book was totally to appeal to someone, because people don't relate to Star Wars, or they don't understand this time frame between Star Wars 1 and Star Wars 2. Yeah, I'm calling it 1 and 2. Kill me, Jason. But people can relate to what it's like to work and not get credit for it, for your work to be marginalized, for your efforts to be marginalized, for all the things that happen in there are, to be in a suit where you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in a Star Wars film, and all of a sudden, there at one point, there's a great soundbite where in the documentary where this dancer says, I just wanted to go home. And that's just so sad, because these people, this was like their gold mine. Oh my, I'm going to be in what? I'm a stand-in. I spend my days in Mr. Belvedere and the Bob Hope special. I'm going to do what? I'm going to be in Star Wars. And then these are the people that were really suffered through this thing. And so to answer what Joe's saying, yeah, I mean, like, it's supposed to really relate to people, it's supposed to really be able to understand it. My goal is, if someone doesn't know anything about Star Wars and they read the book and liked it, that's the success. Because I think it's a universal story just about how people get power. No one wants to tell someone they're making a mistake. The issue of being scared, which Lucas was completely obviously scared by running out the back door in the middle of this thing. No matter how busy he was, he still ran out the back door. And then those people that are still, though, they want to say that they're there, but they're not there. Like, I remember I worked on a show one time, and it was so bad. Like, I really was kind of thinking, like, the whole time, do I have like an excuse for being on this show? Like, instead of just working on the show, I was busy, like kind of writing up my, the term for when your alibi. Why was I on this bed if it was so bad? Um, but that's what these people were doing. There was really never anyone in charge. It seemed like everyone thought this was going to fail that was working on it and was just kind of like riding it along. But it's not like there was anyone really in charge running the ship. It was just kind of drifting along. And everyone's probably like, yeah, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to finish. We're never going to make air, whatever the things were. And we've all been involved in those kind of projects, whether it's television or whatever it is. It's so anyway, that's I think that's a universal thought, especially being marginalized. I mean, I would like to think that's something that people can relate to.